One of my absolute biggest frustrations working as a registered dietitian when people are so proud of themselves for avoiding grains, avoiding carbohydrates, or when they feel guilty, they're like, "Oh, I ate pasta this week. Ugh, confession time. Why are you feeling guilty about this? What's wrong with the grains and carbohydrates?" According to a super recent article literally published yesterday, reported that a plant-based diet including whole grains reduces risk of diabetes by a whopping 24%. Also, a massive systematic review and meta-analysis including over 3 million participants that's not even published yet. Its publication date is January 2024. This concluded that more intake of whole grains reduced risk of all causes of death by 23%. So we're realizing that reducing risk of death, that's protecting our DNA and our cell membranes from damage, reversing our biological age by eating more whole grains. We're reversing all of these disease risks. It's incredible. A 2012 article said that our gut microbiome composition is linked to whole grain induced immunological improvements. Whole grains are the best sources of fiber. This fiber, this prebiotic fiber that feed our good gut bacteria, that not only improve our digestion and our beautiful bowel movements, but it also improves our mood. And it makes it so that we're a lot less likely to get sick, and it reduces our inflammation. And inflammation, yeah, we don't want chronic pain, arthritis, or any autoimmune conditions, right? So it's important that we do eat whole grains, carbohydrates, yes. A 2016 article, I quote, "This meta-analysis provides further evidence that whole grain intake is associated with a reduced risk of coronary heart disease, cardiovascular disease, and total cancer, and mortality from all causes." That includes respiratory diseases, infectious diseases, diabetes, and all non-cardiovascular and non-cancer causes. These findings support dietary guidelines that recommend increased intake of whole grain to reduce the risk of chronic diseases and premature mortality. Wow, no way. Hey, let's eat those whole grains. Those are delicious, incredible foods. I'm just going to quote two more articles here, a 2020 article, and I quote, "Those with all types of diabetes should be encouraged to have adequate intake of dietary fiber. Vegetables, pulses, whole fruits, and whole grains are excellent sources. There is no suggestion from cohort studies or controlled trials that relatively high intake of these carbohydrate-rich foods are associated with a deterioration of glycemic control or weight gain. These findings do not detract from the widely accepted recommendation to reduce intakes of sugars, like white sugar, and rapidly digested starches. There's a big difference between whole grains and refined grains." Lastly, a 2021 review, "Whole grain intake in the Mediterranean diet and a low protein to carbohydrate ratio can help to reduce mortality of cardiovascular disease and slow down the progression of aging and improve lifespan." No need at all to feel guilty about eating pasta, especially if it is well sourced. Even after all of this research I just shared with you, maybe some of you are still afraid of eating pasta, these refined grain products, right? Well, not all grain products are created equal. I am such a fan of this one company that I found in Boulder called Pastificio. Okay, I'm not Italian. I can't really pronounce it correctly, but I'm so excited to share with you this interview with Claudia Bouvier. Growing up in Brazil, Claudia was always surrounded by incredible artisanal foods and her large Italian family. After moving to the US for her career as a civil engineer, she often dreamed about the fresh pastas of her childhood and the memories of her travels in Italy. Claudia and her husband Ted launched Pastificio in Boulder in 2018. Along the way, they've partnered with like-minded farmers committed to growing organic heirloom wheat, milled their own fresh flour, and experimented with numerous small-scale pasta production and drying techniques. 5 of Pastificio Boulder's craft pastas received Good Food Awards. Claudia first learned the art of pasta making as a child with her Italian grandparents, and later through the professional classes at the International Culinary Center in New York and at the Laboratorio Pasta Fresca de la Salmoneria in Bologna, Italy. Okay, I've totally butchered that. I do apologize for my pronunciation. She also advocates for sustainable agriculture and served on the board of Growing Gardens and Slow Food in Boulder. This is so important to me. You have no idea how many questions I get about wheat and pasta. Is this healthy? What do you do? Oh, so I'm just curious to hear how you founded this product, because there's a lot of products out there, especially whole grain products. And just tell me about your product and how this all came to be.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. It's a big pleasure. Super excited. It's a really long story, and I'm not going to go over it. I'll just give you some of the background. My career has been a completely different thing. I am a civil engineer, went to design school, but I grew up in a very Italian family, and of course, food has been like always a pretty huge part of how we socialize, how we communicate, how we connect. So we founded Pastificio 5 years ago, and it's my husband and I. We are co-founders, and he's the one that has the food background. We always, we met through food, and the food has always been there. The main thing is my heritage is Italian, and pasta is such a big deal. And especially when we had children, now they are teenagers, we have two girls. But when they were really little, we had this awareness of all the food that we didn't want to feed them. It's not what we want to feed. It's like, no, 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 no. And having toddlers and pasta being such, an easy kind of food that is so close to my family, I would go to the grocery and couldn't find something that would check everything, whole grain for sure. It needs to be organic. It actually needs to taste good. It needs to have a good texture. And then in that search was really, really always frustrating because we had to compromise a little bit here and there. Always talked about, imagine a little pasta company, every time you go to Italy, you were like in a little town and there's like the homemade, the people that makes that, who they are. It tastes so good. So in a nutshell, the idea has always been there. But 5 years ago, I was at CU and I ended up being part of an incubator program, and I could pick whatever I wanted to do. And I was like, what if that idea of a little pasta company? But it came almost like for fun. And as I started digging deeper and deeper, and it's like, it is actually a good idea. And we started as a fresh pasta company. The product itself, it was almost like a confluence of different parts. Our desire to create something unique that we couldn't find in the market. Second part is Ted is gluten sensitive. And when I came with the idea to him, he was like, okay, good. Love the pasta idea, but how can I found a company that I can't even eat the product because I don't feel well? And then we were like, wheat has been part of our civilization for thousands of years. How come people are feeling so bad eating wheat? So we did a lot of research, and heirloom, heritage, ancient came to our awareness. And then we started to just play with it and research and do more and test. And that's how we ended up with heirloom wheat pasta.
So he can eat it and he's fine. The gluten sensitivity isn't there with this pasta.
Exactly. It has been the guinea pig forever, but as we kind of tinkered, we have been tinkering a lot, especially in the beginning, because, einkorn is one of the ancient wheats that the majority of the people understands that is a better wheat, and it is. But pasta, the wheat for pasta is basically durum.
Hmm.
And you obviously can make pasta with einkorn, but you end up losing several aspects of traditional pasta, which is like that bite, the al dente that we talk about is basically how you perceive the texture of the pasta. And that comes from durum, which is a very hard wheat. And, this history, if I may say a
Yeah.
little bit of, the heirloom, the heritage, the ancient. In a nutshell, it's basically wheats that existed before our agriculture got industrialized. The heritage and heirloom, they are basically used interchangeably, and those are wheats that existed before. The ancient varieties, they are older. There are wheats that are 10,000 years old. So einkorn is one, emmer is another one, durum is another one. And when we started researching and going deeper, for every one of them, you can find different varieties. So durum, for example, it's an ancient wheat, but there is like durum Iraq, and there is Bouvier durum. So there are different varieties within that category of wheat. So the point is, as we use those weeds, the thing is, in the middle of the 1900s, our agriculture started to get really industrialized because the goal was really to grow a lot of food. It doesn't matter if we lost the taste or the nutrition or even the digestibility, they really wanted to grow a lot of food.
Hmm.
So the result of that, it's a wheat called modern wheat. It's basically what you find at the grocery store everywhere. So when we went back to those heirloom and ancient varieties, they hadn't been hybridized to grow a ton. So the yield of those wheats are much lower, but they still have a lot of flavor, a lot of nutrition, and the DNA of those wheats are simpler, which means that we can digest them better.
Hmm.
With that, the whole story is modern wheat does really well with chemical input because it has been hybridized and designed to be a short wheat that you can put a lot of chemical input. The heads really grow a lot, and then they can harvest, and they do everything industrial. When you go to heirloom and ancient varieties, the stalks are really tall and they don't do well with chemical inputs. So they are normally grown organically. So when we look at the varieties of the weeds, how they are grown organically without all the pesticides and the poison that we put in our food, and harvested, with smaller machinery and grown by smaller farmers, and then milled, with different techniques, not the industrial milling. So when you put all those things on the plate, yes, it's food that tastes better, has more nutrition, and people normally can eat and digest and feel well and not feel bloated and uncomfortable.
Right. And there's a lot of data that if you're choosing organic, especially when it comes to wheat, you're actually less likely to get cancer if you're choosing more organic foods. I work with a lot of cancer patients, and it's such a relief to be in touch with you and educate people about this. I cannot believe how many people are experiencing a lot of inflammation, a lot of health issues, and they're really blaming wheat products and gluten. Whereas it's hilarious how they'll go to Italy and they'll say, Katie, that's so funny. In Italy, I was eating pasta just fine.
Yes, and feel well, and
Right.
don't have any kind of reaction. But it is, like if you just think about conventional agriculture, we're basically putting poison in our food, and our food is coming to our body. Of course, we're going to not feel well and get, different diseases. It's like pretty simple, right?
I hate to say that it's more expensive in America to have things that are organically grown. And right now, yeah, just like you were saying, the focus wasn't on, it's not on health, it's not on a high quality product, it's on more yield, right? So
Yeah.
we're destroying the soil, we're destroying the biodiversity. There's a lot of downstream effects to this overproduction of just wheat that has lots of chemicals all over it that
Yeah.
needs to be, we do have a capacity to vote with our dollar and really, yes, let's stop supporting these conventionally grown wheat products and do
Yeah.
our best to, yeah, feel like it's worth it. Prevention
Yeah.
is the cure, right? To spend
Yeah.
the extra couple dollars to support an organic heirloom product. And hopefully, as we can see in history, hopefully it won't be as expensive as time goes on. I think that this should be the only way that wheat is produced.
Yeah, Katie, I think that is something that we talk a lot, about cost of food, and those products like organic or better products, they are seen as more expensive. It's actually that the food that is not like the very highly processed and the conventional food, all the costs that are there, the cost of the environment, the health costs, they are subsidized. They are hidden somewhere. So
Yeah.
it's not necessarily that organic food it's costing more. It's just a more transparent, a more fair. Like we work with smaller farmers, like they are not polluting the environment. They
Yeah.
are basically regenerating the land. They are paying their employees fair amounts. It's just that our food system in America got to be so upside down and so unfair that, big corporations are just polluting everything. They are just destroying everything. People get sick. So we are seeing like, yes, it's more expensive, but you are assuring that you're not destroying the environment, that you're
Yeah.
not damaging your health. So you invest in food, and then you don't need to buy the drugs to cure everything that you're having, come
Right.
into your body. So
That's a beautiful way to really see that perspective. And I've had this difficult conversation with a few patients where it's like, okay, first of all, our perspective of food cost is totally whack because we think that
mhm.
high quality food should cost like $2, where no,
Yeah,
people need to be treated fairly. It actually takes a lot of work to grow these crops and make an incredible product. And I think the baseline it probably should be higher, right? And that's the same thing with like clothing production and all of these things, right? We don't want um, unfair labor. So
yeah,
when it comes to the cost, this difficult conversation I have with my patients, what is the cost of your bloating, of your inflammation, exactly, of your cancer right
yeah,
now? Is it really not worth it to you to spend the extra dollar on a side salad, on that organic product? Because it's investing in your health and it is investing in the health of the environment. And gosh, yeah, I don't know a more important investment than that. It's like, oh,
yeah.
like take my money, take all my money.
Yeah,
It's so worth it.
the way we feel, right? Like how important is that? Like we have one life and a certain amount of time, and how well do you want to feel? Like if you really tally the cost of things, and like eating well, eating organically, and trying to prevent disease, and you put on the other side, okay, I'll just buy and eat a lot of ultra processed food, not feel well, and then in the end have to pay for doctors, for
Right.
treatments, for drugs. Like even if we look at the financial compare apples to apples. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
And you get the benefit, organic food. It's not only that you feel much better, it tastes better, like
Yeah.
the pleasure that you get out of that.
Yeah.
So
And I would love to hear more about where it's sourced from.
So we are in Boulder, in Colorado, and in the very beginning, our company started at the Boulder Farmers Market,
Mhm.
which for us was a blessing because one, our community is really, educated in terms of food, and they really connect with you, and they are really honest about feedback. So we were at the food court, we were making fresh pasta and just serving as prepared food because we wanted to know, wanted to get the feedback. Next to us were all those farmers. And some of the farmers were already growing those varieties of wheats. And since in the very beginning we had no clue what we were doing in terms of planting weeds, we would just get whatever they were growing and mill ourselves and make a whole grain flour and transform it into pasta. So our very, very first, supplier was Aspen Moon Farm. They are just, down the road from us. They're amazing people. Their farm is small, it's organic, it's biodynamic. It's like the best food ever. So we started blending the wheats and, basically figure out what we wanted to make. After two years of testing, we decided that we wanted to blend 4 varieties. So every bite of our pasta, you get semolina, which is basically the endosperm or the white part, in this case, yellow, because the durum is yellow. The
Which is
yellow
so healthy, having that color. Continue.
So it is basically organic durum semolina,
Mhm.
and we blend with Bouvier durum, which is a different variety. Um, Turkey red wheat, it's a winter variety, and kamut, or the wheat called Khorasan. So we blend those 4. Our recipe is 50% whole grain. So the 3 varieties that are not semolina are 100% whole grain. In the end, the formula is a 50% whole grain formula. So as we grew and as we found different needs of different wheats, Aspen Moon didn't work because the quantities and the varieties, to this point, like 3 years ago, durum wasn't really much grown in Colorado. And then we started working with different farmers. Currently, there is Jones Farms Organics. They are in the San Luis Valley in Colorado, close to the sand dunes. They are a slightly bigger family farm, 4 generations organic. They grow amazing everything, and they are growing some durum for us. They are growing Iraq durum. Then the kamut comes from Montana. Bob Quinn was the one that started to revive this kind of durum, and he's the one that basically create kamut. And we do have some wheat come from Washington State.
Mm.
So in our world, we believe that we really want to grow those collaborations directly with the farmers, as we did with Aspen Moon, as we are doing with the Joneses. But it takes time, for the durum in the San Luis Valley to acclimate. It's going to take a couple seasons. So it's kind of a long-term relationship that we have.
Thank you for sharing that. I don't think people realize what goes into making pasta. I love that you have this incredible blend of heirloom wheat product, like wheat instead of just this one or anything. And I love how you explained that it's yellow. People pasta is one of my absolute favorite foods, and I recommend it so much. And a lot of my patients, especially when they first come to me, they say kind of embarrassed, kind of like it's confession time. They're like, "Oh, I've been eating a lot of pasta." Like it's an unhealthy food. And I
Mhm.
explained to them, "Look, this is a whole grain product. I just actually did a webinar, Sugar and Cancer, where I went over a meta-analysis looking at over 300,000 deaths. The more whole grains that people ate, the less risk of death, the less risk of cancer, the less diabetes that people have.
Mhm.
People think that these
Yeah.
are spiking our blood sugar. And I specifically love pasta, especially, of course, whole grain pasta, like from heirloom wheat, like your product. It's a moist heat cooking method. When we're getting it in the form of sourdough or different breads, sure, sourdough is fantastic, but it does often have added sugar. And because it's a dry heat cooking method, it's quite dehydrating, which could spike your blood sugar more. And the moist
Mhm.
heat, it's better overall for our digestive system, like having soups and things that are moist. We want to lubricate our system here. We're mostly water. People don't realize like wheat germ and the yellow color in itself, those zeaxanthin antioxidants are incredible for our skin, for our eyesight, for so many things to protect our DNA. And the wheat germ, that's the best source of vitamin E, which is a fat soluble antioxidant. A lot of people supplement with wheat germ. I'm like, just eat some quality
Oh,
pasta.
great.
Yeah,
Yes.
eat some whole grain pasta. It's quite the superfood, your pasta. And people think that it's this like naughty, and it's quick cooking. I tell people, oh, you got to eat more whole grains. You got to eat more whole grains. They're like, I don't want to rinse it off and let it soak. And, some people are really averse to cooking whole grains, but pasta is so quick and fun and easy and palatable, and you can easily mix in lots of vegetables with it. I couldn't recommend pasta more. It's so fun hearing you explain it. And I'm curious to hear if there's anything further that I love hearing that you educate about these products, and if there's anything that I didn't mention when it comes to, yeah, health benefits of wheat.
Oh, Katie, there's so much, I could keep going. But, I think the things that I wanted to say is, there is more to it. It's, of course, if people talk about pasta that is not healthy, I would say yes. If you get conventional white pasta, it's not going to be
Right.
good for you, right? But then when you go to the whole grain and organic, then you're really stepping up. But and you probably hear about this a lot. When you talk about whole wheat pasta, the texture is a barrier for people. And I can't agree more with people about this, because it was when I was researching for my kids, that was like, it doesn't really have the right texture. It doesn't taste that good. And the way we address this is we till very recently have been fresh milling, and fresh is another thing that I want to tell you. We have been fresh milling the flour, meaning that we bring the grain in, and at least half of our flour we were milling in-house and using a different technique. It's not industrial, and it's not a stone milling. It is a different method that gets the flour really, 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 really fine. And that would make a difference with the texture of the whole, and we call grain, because there's another catch here. When you go to the grocery store and you get whole wheat pasta, what really happens is industrial milling get the grain, the seed, and mill, removing parts of that grain. So it goes through taking all the pieces out, the fiber, the germ, and then what is left is just the white part, which is the endosperm. And then you have the very white flour. When they do,
Volatile. So sad.
it is so sad. And much of that good part basically goes to animal feed. And when they do whole wheat pasta or whole wheat flour, they add back those parts that they removed, but not all. So the parts that they don't add are the oils, the enzymes, the flavor, the vitamins, the nutrients. So you end up with whole wheat, but it is the white flour plus some fiber. And the good part is not there because that flour is it is when you add the oils and the enzymes, it gets perishable and less shelf life. When we differentiate to whole grain instead of whole wheat, it means that everything that is in that seed goes back, the oils, the enzymes, everything that is perishable. Meaning that when you fresh mill, you're basically milling that flour within a certain period that everything is still alive and fresh. We used to do probably like a day or two before milling and making the pasta. So everything is in there. To that point, the texture, because we're milling, was really, really fine. And then the pasta has a texture that is closer to white pasta, but it has all the benefits of the whole grain. So that is part of the fresh milling. And the fresh part is basically trying to get a flour that is, as soon as you break the seed, everything starts to oxidize. And then you start losing the flavor, the nutrition, the oils, it can get rancid. So when you say fresh milling, it's basically you try to really grab everything that is in that seed, which is life, right? Everything for the plant to grow is there. So you get all that goodness and you put in the pasta. And then you make with water and then you dry the pasta so everything's sealed back into that, pasta with fresh milled flour. So
I
there's much more.
Yes, I absolutely love and so acknowledge the depth of the thought behind this product. This is so well thought out and brilliant. I had no idea these different processing ways of processing. And if anything, if anybody gets anything from this podcast, I really hope that people are witnessing, whether it be brain fog, bloating, inflammation, and they're blaming it on wheat and they're blaming it on gluten, know that these products are not created equal. There is
Yeah.
quite a diversity, a variety of grains, of processing methods. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Katie, I think, it's that we are at that point that we really need to question everything that is in our food, right? And pay attention to our bodies. I think if a person is celiac, forget. There's no remedy to that. Forget the gluten. They
Yeah.
can't eat our pastas. But if it's either gluten sensitive or don't know how they feel, because I do get so many of our customers coming back to me and saying, I didn't realize how unwell I felt eating pasta. Now that I'm eating yours, I can eat a bowl of pasta, which by the way they eat less because it has a lot of fiber. You're feeling satisfied with much less. But then like I eat a bowl of pasta and then I can go for a run. I'm not feeling bloated or comfortable,
Right.
sleepy.
And they
It's
probably have the best digestion they've ever had because whole
yeah,
grains are the best source of the most incredible immune boosting fibers. It's
yeah,
so
and
important.
we're feeding our microbiome, which is so
Exactly.
important
And
these
that
days,
improves our
right?
mood, it improves everything.
Yes, yes. There's so much more, in all our food. It happens that pasta is at the moment our vehicle, but as you start really questioning everything and how you feel and why people are not feeling well eating gluten anymore. And then I was like, our grandparents felt really good, right? So what
Yeah.
if we just go back a little bit and
And in the blue zones where people live to
mm,
be healthy, around 100 years old and plus, yeah,
yeah.
they're eating a lot of pasta. And I love how you started this conversation, the connection piece and your
Mhm.
heritage, and how important it is to just come back to kind of a nervous system regulation of really enjoying high quality food with people you
Yeah.
love. And I'm curious to hear, especially with your Italian background, what's your favorite way to prepare it? Or is there any particular way that you recommend?
We do make a lot of different shapes, right? And there is wisdom in the traditions of pasta and how they are prepared. I do really love this idea of cucina povera, which is basically, in essence, it means peasants cooking in Italy. And it's the basis of Italian cooking, which is whatever is seasonal, whatever's in your garden, whatever is growing together, a handful of really good ingredients, the simpler, the better. That's the way I normally cook. Our pastas, because of everything that we do, the heirloom wheats and blending them, the pasta itself has a lot of flavor. So the way I normally recommend is whatever's in season, whatever's in your garden. I'm vegetarian, so I cook a lot of vegetables. So it's basically cook the pasta correctly. You need the al dente, you need the salt to season it, chop some vegetables, a little bit of garlic, saute everything, and just toss it together. That's it.
So good. Exactly. I love how it's such a simple vehicle for the most potent antioxidants and fiber and getting in all those veggies. Thank you. I really, really, I'm so grateful for this product and for all of the energy and time and thought that you've put into it. It's my goal is to help empower people to make decisions that are going to be healthy for them so that they can love on their bodies, love their lives. And one
Mm.
final question I like to ask my guests is, how do you feed your power? How do you empower yourself, whether it be with food or just in general?
I think over time is kind of putting everything, aligning everything that inspires me. And I do feel like I'm at a point in my career, my life as a mother, that knowing that what we are doing is for the better food, for the better environment, for my girls to see me working and feeling every day, let's go. There's not even a single day that I go to work that I am like, oh, there we go. No, it's really it. We have a mission behind, and that really inspires us. So for me, doing what I really care about, I think that's what feeds, my energy.
Yes, the
Yeah.
mission. Thank you for sharing. Where can people find you? Where can people purchase?
Oh,
How can
wow.
they get in touch?
So we do have an online store, Pastificio. And by the way, Pastificio means pasta company in Italian. So
Mhm.
it's pastificioboulder.com. And here in Colorado, in the Rocky Mountain, we do have them, at Whole Foods, at Lucky's, King Supers, Natural Grocers. We are also in California, so Arrow One, and trying to go to Whole Foods that way too. So I guess just Google and you're going to find, the different places that our pastas are at.
I love it. Thank you so much for your time
Thank
today. I'm
you.
excited to share this.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Katie.